Greetings, this is Jed. For this video I'll be speaking about embodying loving awareness in a world that is really pretty permeated by lots of conflict and division. And this applies to your own interpersonal relationships as well as how you react to and respond to things in the world as a whole. This is all occurring on multiple levels, on a physical level, on an emotional level, a mental and spiritual level. We exist here as beings that span that whole spectrum of reality. So we're here with a physical body, with the needs and desires of that physical body. We also have our emotions, our feelings. We have our mental level, our thoughts and beliefs, our mental attitudes about things. And of course there's the spiritual level, which transcends our human identity and which ultimately leads to that awareness or understanding that there's one ultimate creative source, one supreme being, you could call it, that primordial awareness that is at the source of all existence. So on that level, we would perceive things much differently than from our human identity, where we have particular values and beliefs, personal interests, and so on. So in this video I'll be talking about how we can kind of integrate or bring together these different levels of interacting with reality. We each have our own values, our own beliefs, our own way of looking at the world and perceiving other people and different phenomena that are present, whether it's phenomena in human social circumstances or political affairs or economic matters, whatever it might be. It could be related to questions of religion and spirituality. Every human being is in a sense unique. We've each had our own personal life experiences. We've been exposed to particular ideas and information, and it's not exactly the same for any two people. There may be many similarities. So you may come from a culture and you encounter other people who have been exposed to that same culture and they have that similar reference point. But there are other things about your lives that may be different, that may not be at all the same, that have influenced or impacted the way you relate to the world. Given that we tend to often have judgments and condemnations toward people or ideas or groups that see things or interact with the world in a different way than we believe is right or ideal. So we all kind of struggle with that to some extent. How do we react to and respond to those situations and phenomena? Do we get caught up in having that judgmental attitude, having our mind focused on seeing that division and telling ourselves that we're good, we're right, we know what's best, our way of living is ideal and someone else's isn't? Or do we accept that we're really all part of the same creative source, the same spiritual essence, just creating this vast spectrum of identities, different potentials for experience, and there's a place and purpose for everyone and everything. It's possible to look at things in that way, However, when we are in that state of awareness, we tend to be very detached from our everyday life experience. So we're not busy acting and responding and doing things so much. We're kind of stepping back and being more of an observer, where we can have a loving awareness, where we have compassion and understanding to some extent, at least, even toward those who we may see as being very negative or hostile or hurtful or destructive or divisive, whatever other judgments we might have of a polarized nature. We can still step back and have that loving awareness, that compassion for every other being, since all are doing what they feel is justified or right in some way for their identity, for how they see themselves and their place in the world, their place in existence. So if we consider the way we react to things, we might look upon certain people and make a kind of reactive judgment that they're foolish, they're ignorant, that they're evil, that they're destructive, whatever words or labels you might attach to someone, or at least to the words or actions you perceive them expressing. We could also perceive people in the opposite polarity, thinking they're wonderful, they're admirable, they're intelligent, brilliant, beautiful, and so on. And that's the nature of this dualistic reality. We can perceive anything through that filter or lens, that dualistic perspective. And that's useful in our human lives. You're not going to totally erase or eliminate that aspect of things. We're not going to completely silence or distract the mind. It's always going to be there, applying its programming, its ways of perceiving the world. It has its ideals, its beliefs, its values, and so on. So we don't need to completely eliminate all that. We can accept that that is part of who we are in this human experience, but that's not all of who we are. We're not limited by that. We can expand our state of awareness beyond it, beyond the emotions and the mind, to look at things and consider things in a more inclusive or holistic way, where we do have more compassion, more loving awareness. So this is what I'm suggesting that we can all practice some more. It doesn't mean we're not going to react to things from the perspective of the mind and the emotions, so things will still bother or disturb or upset us. We'll still feel angry at times, anxious at times. We'll still feel grief, shame, all these other emotions or feelings that are present in the human experience. While we're not limited by those, we're not limited by our mental judgments of things, we can see that they're natural, they're part of our personality, part of our identity as we go through our human experience. And at the same time, there is a way of looking at things beyond all that, of connecting more with the spiritual essence, and that in some way can help us move toward having more harmony in our personal lives, even if it's just our own mental harmony. in not having as much anger or anxiety about things, where we can help our mind be more accepting, more allowing of life to be how it is, of the world to be how it is, where we don't have to fix and change everything. We can just do what we feel is the best we can with who we are and what we have and how things are in our environment. Understanding that other people are in the same predicament. Other people think they're right, they're doing what's wise or good, that they know better, and so on. So everyone's coming from their somewhat ego-based point of awareness. And at times there will be conflict between these different egos, between how you see things and how someone else sees things. We also often tend to attach labels to people related to group identity. So you might look at people based upon their religious affiliation, their political affiliation, their profession or job that they do, their relationship status, their sexual orientation, their ethnic background, their age, their physical appearance, all these different things that we could use to label people. And then based on that, we make assumptions about them based upon that aspect of their identity, which is really a very temporary aspect if you think of the bigger picture. So we forget to consider each person as an individual. A person's individual identity can change a lot from one moment to another. You might look at someone and in that moment they identify as being, let's say, a Christian or a Muslim, or they might identify as being a parent or a child or a teacher or a professor or a lawyer or an athlete, whatever their group or role is. Yet that role is just one small aspect of who they are, and they're not going to be in that role forever. Beyond that, we can consider that our role as a human being in itself is just a limited temporary role. It's not really fully definitive of who we are. We're going to release that role eventually, and the spirit, the eternal consciousness, will continue to evolve and expand upon itself and go on to other experiences, other identities or roles that it may choose to play. And once again, every expression of consciousness can trace its origin, you could say, to the same ultimate source. So that's why spiritually people refer to the idea that we're all one, since there is that one limitless creative essence that has given birth to every being, every form of life. So when we think about having compassion for others, we can realize that at some level we're all coming from the same source self. We're all different facets or fragments, in a sense, of the same source awareness. So if we choose to go beyond our everyday dualistic judgments and conflicts and divisions, we can find that place within our being where we can remember or recognize that we're not actually separate from those that we may be judging. And this is how we can more fully embody a loving awareness, even when we're immersed in this reality or life experience that has a lot of division and conflict in it. I hope that this discussion has given each of you something to consider or ponder, something that will be useful as you go through your life experience. For now, I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.